Today we're going to be talking about how much I spent publishing my book, Meet Me at the Summit. I'm going to break down all the costs from my editors to some marketing plans that I had and everything in between. And I'll also be talking about some publishing fees. So for reference, Meet Me at the Summit was published on Kindle Direct Publishing, which is owned by Amazon, Ingram Spark, as well as Draft to Digital for the ebook. In this video, I'll be going over what my estimated costs were before I started, buying things, and then what my actual costs were. Now, the costs I'm talking about today do not include the costs that I had to go through to create the book adventure box. And if you want to know what the book adventure box is, be sure to watch the video that is linked down below. It is no longer available, but basically it was this sort of like one-off box that you could purchase and open up gifts as you read Meet Me at the Summit. It was super fun, but again, we're not talking about the costs of creating that in today's video. That's something totally separate, unrelated to the publishing process. But if you do want a video on that, let me know in the comments down below. I have a video where I break down the cost of self-publishing my first novel, Essence, so you can check that out. And then I also have another self-publishing cost video on She's Not Here, which is my third novel. So all those videos will be linked down below. But today we're talking just about Meet Me at the Summit. Hello everyone, and my name is Mandi Lynn. I'm an author, book cover designer, and the creator of the Book Launch Planner, and today we're here to break down the costs of publishing Meet Me at the Summit. Every time I publish a book, I find myself investing money in different areas. You always learn something from every single book launch. Now, for me, the biggest thing I learned was that I wanted to invest a lot of money on a good editor, and that ate up the majority of my budget, which you will see as I go through the costs very soon. But before I go into the exact costs, I wanted to go into the estimated costs, the budget I gave myself before actually spending anything. Now, I personally use the Book Launch Planner to do all my budgeting and track all of my expenses. So if you want to check out the Book Launch Planner, it's linked down below. Today, you'll see me referencing the expense tracker. Now, on the expense tracker, you have the description of what you're paying for, the estimated costs, and the actual costs. Now, you'll notice that I forgot to estimate a lot of things into this, but it all worked out in the end anyways. So let's break down estimated costs. The things that I knew I wanted to spend the most money on were my editors. Going into it, I knew I for sure wanted at least two different types of editors. The developmental editor, who helps you edit your story, and then the line and copy editor, who helps you edit, words on a very line basis. For my developmental editor, I gave myself a budget of $1,200, and then for my line and copy editor, I gave myself a budget of $1,000. And then the next thing on my budget was for NetGalley, because I'd been doing a lot of research on NetGalley, and I wanted to give it a shot. And at first, I didn't know that there were a lot of different options for indie authors. So on my estimated cost, I estimated it to be $450 to $849 to have my book on NetGalley. But if you guys watched my NetGalley video, you know that that is not the actual cost that I paid. And I'll go into what I actually paid later on. So just know that this is wildly inaccurate for what you can expect as an indie author. And the last thing on my estimated cost budget was to do a BookBub feature. And I estimated it to be $110. And I don't know why I put this on this list. I don't think I did a great job at budgeting beforehand. Actually, I know I didn't do a good job because I don't know what I was thinking. It doesn't make sense for me to do a BookBub feature. Usually if you want to do a BookBub feature, you wait until after another book in the series is out. So I personally am going to wait until book 2 in this duology is out to do a BookBub feature on Meet Me at the Summit. I don't know why I wrote it down as an idea to do during release week, but apparently that's where my brain was at first. So that was my budget. That was all I did as far as budgeting goes, and the total was $3,159, which is a lot of money. Spoiler alert, I kept under that, but not by much, which is frustrating. But that's why we always learn. Unfortunately, with this budget I created for myself, I didn't take a lot of things into consideration. I didn't consider the Ingram Spark fees I would have to pay. I didn't consider the cost of printing proof copies, and I also didn't consider the pre-order incentives that I wanted to do, because I think maybe that's my biggest regret, besides the costs of my editors, is how much money I spent on pre-order incentives. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. For now, let's break down the actual costs of what I spent for Meet Me at the Summit, and yeah. First things first, developmental editor. What did I end up paying? I paid $1,183 for my developmental editor. I actually feel like I got a lot of my money's worth for these edits, because she actually went through my manuscript twice. The first time she just wrote up an editorial assessment, gave me this document, I read it, and then I edited my book accordingly, and then I sent it back to her, and then she did more nitty-gritty inline developmental edits the second time. So I feel like I got a really good price for what I got as far as editing goes, but I'm not sure if that's something I want to do in the future, because when I worked with my beta readers, they did such an amazing job that despite how great my developmental editor was, she just wasn't as good as my beta readers, because I had a lot of beta readers and only one developmental editor. Now let's move on to my copy and line editor, because that's where things get complicated. So initially, I paid my copy editor $1,375. If you guys have seen my previous videos in the past, you may have heard that I had some serious issues with my copy and line editor, where basically I was not happy with the result. At first I was, because she seemed like she was doing a lot of work, but then I realized that she missed a lot of things that was really important. So, long story short, I kind of let her know and gave her a list of all the things that she missed when she was doing copy edits for me. And she at first offered a full refund, but then after talking it over and kind of looking at what she did and what she didn't do, we compromised and did a 50% refund. So at the end of the day, I paid $687.50 for my copy edits. Now, because of the fiasco with the copy edits, the reason I knew the copy edits were bad was because when I sent my manuscript to my proofreader let me know that she was making a ton of copy edit changes. So all of a sudden my proofreader became my copy editor, and now I felt like I didn't have a proofreader, even though I did technically have a proofreader. Now, so I actually hired a second proofreader. Now, the first proofreader, we did an exchange of service where she proofread my book and I designed a book cover for her. So for my proofreader, there was no exchange of money. So for that reason, I'm not counting that into my costs for self-publishing Meet Me at the Summit, because all it did was cost me my time, not my money. However, I did go ahead and hire a second proofreader, and that proofreader, I basically explained the situation to her, that the book had already technically been proofread, but that I was worried that some stuff had slipped through the cracks. So for that reason, she kind of offered me a deal as far as proofreading goes, and she charged me $397.50, and I will say she was super, super thorough, and I will definitely be working with her again. So that was the editing costs. Now let's move into the marketing and more publishing costs. So the first marketing cost I had was for NetGalley. Now for NetGalley, my book was listed for 3 months, which cost me $300, and then I also did a week-long feature, and the feature was $125. So for total, I spent $425 on NetGalley, and there's a lot that goes into NetGalley and being a self-published author, the pro and cons, and I have a whole video on it. I have a lot of opinions when it comes to NetGalley and being an indie author on it in terms of like, is it good? Is it bad? Should you do it? Should you not do it? So be sure to check out the video because it has way more information that I can't begin to cover here. Now, as well as NetGalley, I also put advanced reader copies of my book on Story Origin, and I ended up paying $20 total for Story Origin. They charge $10 a month. I used it for 2 months. You can use the free version, but I actually use Story Origin so much that I have a paid version of it, so I use $20 on Story Origin. The next category I have is pre-orders, because I did a lot of things to promote my pre-orders. The first thing I did was create a YouTube graphic, and I hired someone on Fiverr to create a cool little graphic. I'll show it on the screen now. Basically, I put this little graphic on every single video I had leading up to the release of my book, just to remind people to pre-order. And then as far as pre-order incentives go, this is where I think I got a little too trigger happy and spent a little bit too much. I bought a bunch of stickers to use as pre-order campaign items. The deal was that everyone would get 3 vinyl cut stickers as well as a few other things that I'll mention soon. Those vinyl die cut stickers were not cheap. They were $204. The good news is I also sell them whenever I do vendor fairs or book signings, and now they're also available on my website. So if you didn't get them when I was handing them out for free, you can purchase them now, link down below. But yeah, it was a little expensive. I also bought postcards. Now these postcards were super cute. They had the map of the trip that Marley went on during Meet Me at the Summit. While the postcards are super cute, they were $33.31, which is a little bit on the expensive end for me. But I'm hoping in the future, if I do postcards, that I can figure out how to print them myself because I do have a good printer. And last things on the list is like publishing fees. So like I said, I published my book with Ingram Spark, and the thing I hate most about Ingram Spark, or one of the things I hate most about Ingram Spark, because I dislike Ingram Spark a lot, but one of them is that whenever you publish a book, you have a title fee. But not only do you have a title fee, but you also have fees whenever you update your documents. So I paid $24.50 as my title fee just to create a new book on Ingram Spark, which, you know, is fine. But in order to get a proof copy of my book, like a physical copy that I can hold and look through, I have to approve the files and then order the copy. But, you know, odds are if it's a proof copy, it's not the final version. So then you have to update the interior and possibly even the cover, and then you have to pay a fee again. And that fee I had to pay again was $25. So now to publish a book with Ingram Spark, I paid $50, which you may say that's not a lot, especially when I spent over $1,000 on one type of editor. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're trying to cut back on costs, that's really annoying, especially the fact that you have to pay that fee every time you need to update a file. And lastly, I also had to pay to have this proof copy of my book, which is normal. You're gonna pay to have a proof copy of your book no matter where you go. Unfortunately for me, Ingram Spark just costs a lot more. I paid $26.56 for this proof copy here, which is only annoying because when I order a proof copy through somewhere like Kindle Direct Publishing, it's only like $10, maybe $15 when you include shipping. But the downside with KDP is that when you print a proof copy through KDP, they put an annoying bar across the cover that says not for resale. But with that said, that is all the costs that I paid to publish this book right here. So that means it was a total of $3,051.90, which is a lot. I hope that in the future I don't spend that much. So unfortunately for me, when I was publishing Meet Me at the Summit, I think I was still in the mindset of like having a full-time job that would give me a paycheck, because this was not something I was keeping into account when I was hiring my editors. Because it wasn't until after I hired my editors and spent the money and then would sit down and try to figure out how much I get to pay myself that month and realize, oh my God, I spend just as much on my editor as I did making income this month, and that's just something I have to get used to. So yeah, in the future, gonna be spending less on editors, but I have lots of thoughts on that, and let me know if you want another video from me on what I plan on doing with my next book to save a lot more money when it comes to publishing. If you want additional content, I create monthly videos for my YouTube members where I talk about my marketing strategies, where I talk about income goals, and a bunch of other things every single month. So be sure to join as a YouTube member down below. Otherwise, I will see you guys all next week.